One of the things we look for when finding a Land Rover project to build or restore is a good history and a story. But sometimes that story is just so good, we just have to keep it alive and preserve it for the next caregivers to continue on the legacy. This series of Defender Rescue will focus on Project Toto, a very unique Land Rover One Ten we had the pleasure of acquiring recently. It's not only beautiful, but has quite a story to go with it.
Hi, Andy here at Bishop+Rook Salisbury. We're just about to start a new series of videos on the preservation series of Land Rovers that we do. So any of you that follow our website and the way that we build things in the process will understand that we have a couple of different series of builds. Now, behind me, as you can see, is what we would call a preservation series. Now, the idea behind this is that we're actually purchasing vehicles that we think have got the right history, and we're preserving that. So we're not really selling these vehicles with the intention of having them fully restored or bespoke built like some of the vehicles you've seen on our website and Instagram following. The idea is that this vehicle is almost as cool as it gets the way it is, so we're going to try and preserve that. So I'm going to turn the camera around, I'm going to walk you around the vehicle. This is going to be a series of videos probably stretching 6 episodes long or maybe more. We're going to try and give you as much content as possible into the way we build things, the reason we do things the way we do them, and what the end result is. So yeah, I'm going to turn the camera around now and show you what we've got. Now, I've brought this vehicle outside because we just didn't have enough room at the current frame rate to get round the vehicle inside the workshop, and with the guys working full-time and it being noisy, it was quite difficult. So what's happened is this vehicle has now entered the assessment stage. So I'm going to walk you around what that looks like, and then shortly we'll be back down at the workshop where we're going to show you some videos of actual working and what the guys do with these vehicles at the assessment stage. So at this point, what we've done is we've had the vehicle in and we've marked it with chalk. Now, some of you may have seen things like this before. What this is if there's a blemish or something we're unhappy with, we'll mark it with chalk so that we can assess really how long something is going to take us and potentially how severe the problem is. Now, you'll see lots of things in here. There's a couple of little marks. They would suggest that needs stripping down and the rust rectifying before painting. Our idea with this vehicle at the moment is that we're going to take this apart and paint it in its original colour. We're going to refurbish the wheels, original wheels, and just make this look exactly as it should from 1989 or whenever this thing was produced. Now, this thing's got some very cool history which I'm going to share with you shortly. But just to give you an idea of what the thing looks like to start with, the idea is that you guys are going to follow along with us on this one and see it at every stage. So really, this car is in fantastic condition for its age. And it might not look like it because of all the pink chalk everywhere, but I mean, really, in retrospect, a lot of the pink chalk marks out some pretty minor stuff. And our guys will spend a little bit of time knocking dents out, straightening up panels, and just working with what we've got. The idea for us on this one is that the history is so cool that we really want to keep this as original as possible. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit about the history in a moment. Let me give you some basic stats on this car. This is a 2.5 litre petrol with a manual gearbox, 5-speed manual gearbox. I've personally never driven one of these vehicles before until today. I've never driven a petrol engined one. I've driven early series vehicles with 2 1/4 petrols or 2 3/4 petrols, but this is a little bit different. And as you'll spot some of the extras on this car, if you're a keen Defender guy, you'll probably, or girl I suppose, you'll probably spot some of the extras. This has got a lot of factory fitted extras, including something called a tropical pack. Now, as far as I'm aware at the moment, that stretches as far as a factory fitted AC kit, which on a really early vehicle is quite rare. This has obviously no flaps where the usual bulkhead flaps would have been. It's got the raised grille where an air conditioning condenser is, and then under the bonnet it's got all the gubbins and a completely different heater box. So it's quite different. I think the tropical pack stretched a little bit further than that as well. I believe it gave it some other extras. I'm going to follow up on that with some extra information on what the tropical pack actually included. Some other really little things that we've never seen before. This little lever, not something I've ever seen fitted before. It holds the door open. Just cool little things like that. And with this being an early CSW, some of the interior trim panels are a little bit different, which is cool. This vehicle was brought out prior to the Defender release, so that was just a naming thing. That when Land Rover produced this vehicle, it is a Defender in every right. However, they didn't call it a Defender back then, they called it a 110, which is obviously the wheelbase figure. So that's where it gets its heritage as far as Land Rover are concerned. This was an early produced vehicle, and it's no different in any way really to the Defender. It just was named differently. So some of the heritage on this vehicle. This vehicle, we can't tell you a lot about the owners, only because we've been told that we have to keep that to ourselves. However, the history of this vehicle is quite interesting. It was purchased originally by a family that took it to Africa, and it spent pretty much its entire life there. It's covered 290,000 kilometers, but it had a lot of factory options to make it a better vehicle in Africa. A lot of that being the tropical pack. It was obviously left-hand drive from the factory, and I believe this was a UK purchased vehicle. We actually have the original sales receipt. What you won't believe about this vehicle is we've actually had to pay more for it at 30 years old than it was brand new. So we've given a considerable amount more money for this vehicle as a donor than it would have been 30 years ago. So if you're talking about something from an investment perspective, this really has appreciated at a better rate than most vehicles on the road today, just to give you an idea. So there's that. It has a pretty interesting history that it was driven overland all the way back to the UK, and it was being sold by a restoration business that's done a little bit of work on it to get it to the state it's at, just to make sure that it's safe and roadworthy. And we drove this vehicle back from about an hour away and managed to achieve 70-75 miles an hour on the motorway, which was quite surprising because they don't normally do that. So maybe we've yet to look underneath this, but maybe there's an additional upgrade item on the transfer box. It might be that it's a 1:2 ratio, which is something we saw on Discoveries. But yeah, this vehicle came out at the same time that the Range Rover Classic was the flagship model for Land Rover, and the Discovery One hadn't quite poked its head through the clouds yet. So this was only one of two vehicles that Land Rover were producing alongside, obviously the 90 and the different variations of the Defender or the 110. But yeah, there was only this and another vehicle really for Land Rover. So what I'll do is I'm going to turn the camera around now and just talk to you a little bit about what the plan is going forwards with this Preservation Series vehicle. So here at Bishop+Rook, we prefer to preserve vehicles rather than change them completely. And obviously this is all based around what you as a customer want from us, and quite often we'll say to you that we can make anything happen. As you've seen with some of our builds, it's really about your imagination. However, vehicles like this, it was originally destined with our company to be an LS vehicle swap, which we just decided wasn't the right direction for this vehicle at the time because of the preservation. Now the story, which I'm sure Mike will tell you a bit more about shortly, is more interesting to us than the actual purchase, and I think we need to preserve that. This is one of those vehicles that fits perfectly in our Preservation Series of builds, and it's not very often that you'll buy a vehicle like this that has the heritage that this vehicle has. I mean, things like the tropical pack, the original sales receipt that comes with the vehicle, I mean, even the extras on the paperwork listed in individual form. I mean, it's just a fantastic heritage, a fantastic history. This being one of the first 110 vehicles produced following on from the Series 3, it just screams preservation. For us, we are going to start this vehicle without it having an owner currently. This vehicle will be preserved as we see fit until somebody purchases it, and at that point it might well change form. So you're going to follow on this series as a business, you know. This series is going to follow us as a business, and you're going to see every stage of this, whether that be following all the way through the Preservation Series until we get to the point where we're ready to sell the vehicle, or it might be purchased sort of mid-build, so you might see it change direction quite rapidly, which happens a lot in this business for us. And sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's really good for us, you know, and it's nice to see what customers do with these vehicles. But we're hoping to find the right candidate for this vehicle, and hopefully it will remain true to its original look. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the next few months, I suppose.